This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission. Issues at hand.
Oh yes, greetings and welcome back. Thank you for keeping it to Church of Uganda Family TV. And now we are heading into issues at hand. Well, yesterday we had a number of challenges. The whole country had issues, electricity here, electricity there. But well, at least things were sorted. Now, we have been having a very strong hold in this sector when it comes to powering the nation, which is UMEME. It has done as well for 20 good years. But now, everything has to always come to an end. But of course, we have to move on. You know, there are things you do and come to an end, but still, life has to continue. So we are going to be discussing in that lane the concession UMEME had with us for over that, and also the transition to UEDCL, which is going to be taking on, of course, this mantle of powering the nation, continuing from where UMEME had done. Now, to speak to all this, we are going to be having my senior here, who is going to be taking us through, and he is from the Electricity Regulatory Authority, CPA Edward Iruuna. You're most welcome to Church of Uganda Family TV, and he is the Director for Financial Services at ERA. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you our people. Please, you can start by greeting them, and then we kickstart today's discussion.
Thank you very much, Luke. Good morning, viewers. First of all, I want to thank Family TV for giving us this opportunity to host us here, and also giving us an opportunity, perhaps to clarify a few things, but also to educate where possible, to share information. We thank you. As I've been already introduced, I'm called Edward Iruuna. I work at the Electricity Regulatory Authority as the Director of Finance, and I've been working there for some time, almost a decade now.
Wow.
Yes, so I'm happy to be here.
It's a blessing to be here now. Since you've been there for a decade, you know it very, very well. Can you give us a preamble, a brief introduction about what ERA is, what the electricity regulation is, what it does, and specifically to that lane?
Thank you. Electricity Regulatory Authority is an institution or the agency established by the Act of Parliament in the laws of Uganda. It was really established 1999, 2000. Since then, the laws have been amended. I think we amended last year in 2020. No, 2022, we made the amendment. So our role is really to regulate electricity from the generation, where they would say in simple terms, where they manufacture, where they produce electricity, and also to regulate the transmission, those who transport it, and the distribution, those who distribute it to end users, industrialists, and whatever. So we are charged with that role of ensuring that that segment, the subsector, works well. One, we manage the entry. And when we talk about entry, we are looking at licensing. All those who want to generate electricity, who want to distribute, we have to license them. The other key thing where everybody knows, they only know us as setting tariffs. That's another function that we do, and the public is only, I think, more knowing us for setting tariffs, but we also set tariffs. But also we set standards for the licensed companies to perform very well. We set charges, all the charges that are charged by customers. We really work as a referee in the sector to ensure that we manage all the interests of all the stakeholders, the consumers, the people who bring in money, the investors, but also government, to ensure that the government policy is aligned to what we do. Really, our functions are so many. If you look at the Act Section 10, we have a number like 15 of them, but those are a few key ones I can mention to you.
Can you also talk about your priorities? What are you prioritizing?
We operate through a plan, and we have what we call a strategic plan, although it's rolling for 5 years and above. Our current focus really is, the key focus is on increasing access and growing demand. We are still working around affordable tariffs to ensure that the users, but also the prices reflect the true cost of that service fairly to all the players. We're also looking at the reliability, ensuring that there is a reliable supply, but also the quality of what is supplied. So that if you wanted to switch on the watts or the voltage you want, when you want it, you can get it. And when you get it, it doesn't give you quality issues. So those are really key three: internal, but external. Internal also want to continue building our capacity as an institution, but also ensuring that our staff complement, our learning and growth are key. But also we have various systems that support all that to ensure that we are an institution that is credible, that has integrity, that is able to be relied on and trusted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Haven't you had complaints about the charges from the public, and how have you responded to them?
We've had, certainly. You see, we are dealing with a very sensitive commodity, electricity,
Yes.
where everybody has interest, but rightly so, because without it, you can't drive the economy. There are many things, hospitals, schools here, if we don't have power. So, in essence, people would want even free service.
Wow.
And even when you work around and reduce, it has not really, people have not felt the efforts that we've done. But what we do really, we hear you, we hear all the consumers. We have been working around affordability and some of the actions that have been taken by government, for instance, on constructing our own government-supported power plants. For instance, Karuma, Isimba is one of the ways, because what drives this cost is the investment, the financing arrangement. And this financing arrangement comes with a cost. So if an investor puts in money, certainly you want to recover that money. So the reflection will be reflecting the charges, because they have to capture. So government has done that, but also have done our own internally, ensuring that we ensure that the efficiency of these companies are driven to the extent that they are not inefficient and will drive costs down. We have worked with these licenses to ensure that the investments they bring are towards cost reduction, for instance, on losses. You know, losses is a cost to me and you, both commercial losses and technical losses. When power is stolen, for instance, when people vandalize, we end up paying that cost.
Yes.
So we've worked with companies, we worked with the licensees, with the government, first to work on vandalism, because that's one of the areas that has actually pushed this cost to be high. Loss reduction, investments in loss. We've worked on prepaid meters. This have retrofitting the distribution company to ensure that there are no theft of electricity. But we also done what we call companies doing what we call rebate. For big industries, a customer who wants to be connected to power, and he can pay that money in his normal monthly payments to recover the initial cost of investment. So we believe that also reduces costs, but also increases on access.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, since 2005, you have been working hand in hand with UMEME, and here it is. Closing off, or its time is done with us here. Can you tell us about the relationship we've had with them over the years?
Maybe just a bit of a background to our listeners and our viewers is that UMEME entered into a concession agreement with government. First of all, UMEME was competitively procured. When I say procured, is that a company bidded to run our distribution segment.
Okay.
Why? Because at that time, when the Electricity Regulatory Authority was formed or established, government unbundled. When we call unbundled, that we used to know what we call UEB, Uganda Electricity Board.
Okay.
It had so many challenges: the losses, the connectivity, the load shedding. We didn't have enough supply, but even the demand was low. We had around less than 200 customers. So government took it upon that to ensure that if it is to improve and facilitate, so they liberalized, or they requested for a private player in some segments. So UMEME came on board in 2005. When it came on board, the assets that were run by a government company, which was unbundled, called the UEDCL, concessioned these assets to UMEME through what we call a lease and assignment agreement. It was signed in 2005 for 20 years, ending on 28th of Feb.
There was no clause of further.
No, that was a natural termination,
Oh.
a natural end. Yeah, because if you have a contract, for instance, with, Family TV,
Yes.
for 5 years, who knows, 5 years, either party may decide, or we may leave it to end and agree to part ways without peacefully.
Yes.
So that's what the government has done. It has been a natural end after 20 years. But during these 20 years, there were agreements, there were commitments, there were rights and obligations of each party, including government, what is their role, and what they signed another one which we call a support agreement. Then finally, the era licensed them, so issued a license, which ends on 31st of March.
Okay.
So during that period, the UMEME has performed to the extent that they have improved the network.
Yes.
The connectivity has improved. We're talking about almost 2 million customers from when they came in, when it was less than I think 150. They have improved on the supply. The reliability has improved, even when we still have challenges, because this system, you can never have 100%.
Yes.
There will always be something. Like you talked about when we were starting here, that we didn't have power. Yes, there's a challenge whenever it rains and storms in this country with our vegetation covered. They always have a challenge. Of course, we look forward working to improve. So the relationship has been okay. They have been working under the license, terms and conditions, and the lease and assignment agreement. Now it has come to natural end.
Natural end.
Now that's what government is has been working on, because this natural end was known 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and there have been steps towards this end of the concession. Yeah.
Have they served our expectations?
To the extent possible, UMEME has performed, because there are visible things you see. When we talk about the investments, yes, they have done investments. They have built substations, which you can go and see. They have improved the connectivity. People have been connected. They have reduced on losses. By the time they came in, I think the losses were around 30 and above. Now they've been driven to around 14 for this year. They have driven in terms of distribution. When you look at, you see, UMEME has been at the end. Power is generated. He's the one supplying it and ensuring everybody has. So I think for me, they have, to the extent possible, performed.
Okay.
We have some other challenges, but they have done the work to the extent. Yeah.
So now let us look at the transition heading to UEDCL. How is this going to be handled? And then during this transition, how prepared are we to take on that?
Okay. So look, one thing is that the government, working with all the key stakeholders, have been knew this was going to happen. It's not a surprise that, like some people have been saying, where have you been? What has happened? No. 2025, 31st March was known, or 30th March, that UMEME will end, and 1st of April, UEDCL will take over.
Okay.
So that's been working process behind that for the last 3 years, starting with committees set up at ministerial level, and also the joint technical committees. Now, these joint technical committees are looking at how technically the transition arrangement, looking at the readiness of the UDCL. And this committee has been charged to discuss many things, including the financing arrangement. So it has been on, and the regulator has been part of these discussions, supporting and ensuring that the Ugandan company, Uganda Electricity Distribution Company, takes over back the assets which were concessioned to UDCL. So when we talk about that, what are we looking at? Government, through a cabinet, took a decision not to renew, to ensure the natural domination, and started looking at providing financing. How do we finance? Because this sector needs financing. You cannot run electricity like any other thing without financing arrangement. So one is that government started sourcing and approving money that will support the investment and financing of UDCL. There has been transition in terms of staffing to ensure how do staff transit. I think you've heard our minister talk about staff, the structure, how it will move. Recently, so government through, Parliament has submitted a request through Parliament. They have approved a loan for which to pay off the buyout amount of UMEME and also to finance UDCL. I think they approved around $50 million to finance UDCL moving forward. So the process has been on. There has been a lot of system integration, for instance, ensuring what is working with UMEME, what is going to transit. There has been an audit, there has been a review of system, because that is key when you look at ICT, because ICT is revenues and the billing systems, how are they going to work, are you being able to vend? Because the main objective for this transition was smooth transition. I think that's our tag name. We have to ensure smooth transition and continuity of supply. Yes.
Okay, let's talk about the buyout amount. What entails it? We have seen people complaining, even actually members of parliament on floor are saying, isn't this too late to raise this amount of money? Now the country has to go and borrow, all those things. Wasn't this prepared prior?
Yes. So one of the things, just to explain, before I explain what entails the buyout amount, the process of the buyout amount is defined in the framework, in the lease and assignment agreement.
Okay.
I think clause 12.2. It clearly shows how the buyout amount will be paid and when will it be paid. Now, the challenge that this process is that UMEME terminates or ends on 31st. But all that time, UMEME is working and is investing. So if you're talking about a buyout amount is the amount that will be paid to UMEME for all their investments which have not been recovered. And recovery means which have not yet been paid by the consumer. Me and you and anybody who consumes. Okay. So they have been investing money, but now you need to compute and ensure that what is that amount that has not been recovered. That's what computer buyout amount. And because they have lost a return, it includes a 5% as per the agreement. So this is a process. How is it determined? Those are the elements, but who determines it is the Office of the Auditor General.
Okay.
And when is he determining it? He has to determine up to extent possible to the last day. But remember, UMEME has been investing and has to invest up to 31st. Even today, God forbid, if power, we had a blackout in this, UMEME is charged to ensure it restores. And secondly, it has been restoring and putting investment on the network. For instance, if a transformer blew or there's only a problem, UDCL has not taken over, UMEME has to continue doing this work up to 31st. But remember, this money it is investing in now, it must be reflected in the buyout amount. Okay. Because it is their money. So the process has been on. All the process have been determined up to 2024, now 2025 is being determined. The buyout amount is being determined. So it's not late, but it's how the process is. So what has happened is that you cannot wait until 31st, you have to keep determining. And the figures may keep changing. So the only person who will pronounce this number will be the Auditor General, because the Auditor General is charged first by the law, but also government elected to be the one to determine that. Yes.
Oh, and then there could be concerns if I have both may occur this month, and then we are ending, but I still have what happens next. Transitioning to what will it be like? Those are questions one would want to hear.
No, I want to allay all the fears of our consumers and customers to UMEME and finally transit into UEDCL. That this is something that the regulator and UMEME and UEDCL have been discussing, including the NITAU or the government, the AT, the National Information Technology Agency, that the systems have been reviewed. And one of the risks we are worried is around transition and the system being compatible.
Okay.
Now, the system they have now will enable our customers to vend. We call it vending, to be able to load, even on the first of April, but also to continue using. However, the little bit that is going to be is that these systems might run parallel for the first 30 days, to ensure that there is end-to-end checking. But this will also enable the customers to continue vending. One of the other things is that we'll have an opportunity with our team to come and explain the customer care how you go on the mobile and vend, because we may have 2 UEDCL accounts, for instance, on vending, to ensure that you are able to vend the customers who have been with UEDCL, because UEDCL has been also operating, and also UMEME. But in terms of system, in terms of billing system, in terms of those who have loaded, for instance, today you can load 100 units, but even you don't utilize it up to May. There's those who load your car for a season, for instance. They buy a car in Old Town, so there will be no problem. They will be able to transit properly. Our systems have been checked, have been planned. As we talk now, we are still testing, ensuring that everything is end-to-end. There should be no loss. However, if there are any natural complications, they will certainly be handy. We're going to help. So our helplines will be there. The customer care and UEDCL will be available. The IT team is on standby to ensure it rectifies any hiccup that may arise. But we don't anticipate that because of the arrangements we put in place.
How about new applications coming in?
The same way. The new applications will continue under UEDCL, because the systems will be captured and those systems will be transferred to UEDCL. So whatever, at what level you are, UEDCL. That's why I'm saying there should be continuity of supply and continuity and smooth transition. So that you are able to seamless. What we want is a seamless transition, so that you are not affected, our customers are not affected, and our users or our consumers are not affected by this transition. Yes.
Can you touch into the prices? Will there be any slight changes, or it is normal?
Well, you know, prices are driven by so many things. But if I talk on the broader and what government thinking and government plans are, is that they think about affordability. It's an issue, and it's one of our focus area. The financing arrangement for UMEME, as you know, the cost of financing has been high. Because at that time when the agreement came into place, perhaps the risk profile of this country was so high that somebody to put in the money had to put a higher return. And also the negotiation, many things have changed. We had post-paid by then, now we have prepaid. The technology itself has evolved. So many things have evolved in this country, but also the world all over. The efficiency mechanism, the digital platforms and all that. But also key is the financing. We expect also finance to go low, because what government is trying to do is to source cheaper financing. We have got the initial one, which is 50, but remember the 20% return of UMEME is off now. Perhaps we'll get a cheaper financing. So in the long run, we expect our prices to stabilize and also to relatively go low where possible. And given that currently also our economy has been growing strong in terms of the exchange rate movements, our Uganda shilling has been going in strength. So we believe that the prices will relatively, they may not drastically go down, but we see a trajectory that prices will be stabilized. I think you have noticed from the previous quarter, and the prices went down by 5%. Of course, people say that's too little, but it's something. We are starting from there. So we see
a good start.
We see there will be some movement and shifts.
Okay. And maybe before we go for a break, what strategies did you use for the task force or the labor, the workers? Is it direct to you? If you are in UMEME, you can now switch to UEDCL, or there's a way of there's a process that happened?
Thank you very much, Luke. There was a process, but first of all is that when the two companies merge, one of the key fundamental things also is structure. So a structure was agreed upon.
Okay.
How are we going to drive and ensure these companies run? So the shareholders, and you know UDCL has shareholders, which is the Ministry of Finance, currently I think at 49%, and Ministry of Energy at 51%, and the board. At one point consulting the regulator agreed on the structure. Certainly, UMEME was bigger than UDCL. So there are some positions that were created which could have been UMEME. So one of the process agreed was that they advertise.
Okay.
Priority given to UMEME staff and UDCL. In the event where there are one position and two people are competing for it, it's certainly to be taken by one person.
Yes.
But efforts and intentions were made to ensure that there is minimal losses of staff, to the extent possible, so as you can manage the transition. These are Ugandans that have been working in UMEME, they have the capacity, they have the experience, and certainly if they're in good standing, because we are very, very worried. We need people with good standing because they work on a delicate functions. So staff moved through a competitive process, but also avoiding duplicity, so that we don't duplicate roles. And that process, there's those who may not, because who are not successful, and I think the process closed. There are some positions which were not filled. They will still advertise them, and they will endeavor to be transparent and ensure people compete. And the priority was given to UDCL staff and UMEME staff. So the process is almost, I would say, 70% done. We expect 1st April. They have all received the appointment letters, and the work to continue seamlessly. Yeah.
Wow, very important. And now when we return from the break, we are going to be talking about the benefits, what will come along when UEDCL takes over. What are those benefits that you and I, the consumers, are going to be getting, or we, the Ugandans? A short break and we return.
Issues at hand. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission. Issues at hand.
You are welcome and thank you for keeping it Church of Uganda Family TV. This is Issues at Hand. And yes, today we are talking about the electricity you consume, but majorly about the UMEME that has been here with us, and now that they are going off the transition and what happens. We have talked about everything there, and I want to continue appreciating you for joining us here, and all those joining us online, we really appreciate as well. Maybe before we head to the benefits, there are some comments here from YouTube. If I can read out to them, some of them are questions, some of them are appreciating. And maybe if we can get answers. There is one from Umbale, watching from Umbale, says, but will the units they promised us be genuine? Maybe you can answer that. I don't know the units they promised you. From Umbale, Julius. Also, this one says, UMEME has been both good and bad, but it has been a pleasure working with UMEME. But what will happen to the employees of UMEME? I think we had already answered to that, so please stay on. There are 3 figures of the buyout, so which is which? This one also, it's a good comment there, saying thank you. And then Rita says, our power is always on and off. At times it takes 3 days when off. Businesses are being affected. Also, this one says, but why do we take long to get token numbers these days? It's now 3 weeks for me. Wow, that's a challenge one. And then maybe the last one I can pick. This one says, some of us had started calling electricity UMEME. Okay, I think this one is just a comment. She says, get us another fancy name we can call UCDL. But well, maybe if we can answer a few of them, and then we head to the benefits we're going to be getting.
Okay, thank you very much, Luke, and also thank you very much the viewers who are following us up on YouTube and all other channels for listening and also giving us feedback in terms of the comments. I will attempt some have not been complete in terms of information, but number one is that I had 2 complaints, especially on unreliability of power. I don't know where they are specific locations.
I think they didn't specify.
And also the tokens. How I wish maybe before I leave we share the if they have tried to have to follow up with UMEME and they have failed, my advice is they need to follow up with UMEME offices with a toll-free. If they fail and they are not getting response, depending on where they are, we have an office in Mbale. Our area office, we've started it now, it's coming to a year. They can reach out to that office. We have another one in Uguru, which we also opened in Uguru. We'll give you the details. They could reach out to those. But those who are in Kampala, if they have reached out to any location and they have failed, they can reach out to area office. Okay. Especially where UMEME has not been responsive and it has taken long to be resolved. Especially those who have failed to connect or to load units, and also the one on reliability. We are saying 3 weeks. That is too much. Even if there are incidents like what we've had on the storm a day ago or 2 days ago. So I think for me, my response is to advise them to reach out to UMEME. If they fail, they reach out to us. Now, the issue on the units, I think it was not complete because they don't know which units and who promised.
Who promised?
But in terms of genuine, I would assume that he's talking about Yaka units, if whether sold are genuine. First of all, I need to warn that they need to buy Yaka units from the proper channels. And those channels that you have to dial through the phone and put in your meter number, and you must have loaded the money and you buy. Do not. This country is full with fraudsters and ethical people. There is a crisis. Somebody thinks that And people have been conned. I will give you 5,000, I give you 100 units. Unbelievable. Those attractive offers, you should just run away from them. People have lost money in that regard, and the investigations have not really been good for the people who are doing those things. So my warning is that they them buy from the genuine platforms and procedures. And if it fails to load, please, there's a recourse. Reach out to UMEME. If UMEME is not there, reach out to UEDCL. If UEDCL is not there, reach out to the regulator. We will be able to support you and also be able to resolve and find out what the issues are. I think those are the questions. I don't know if there's any other question. The staffing, we had discussed about the staffing. You don't need to repeat ourselves.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yes. And now, let's talk about the benefits. Yes. What does this transition come along with? Well, immediately when UEDCL takes on, what benefits are we going to get as consumers?
The first benefit is one I explained, that UMEME has been a private company which has brought in capital, brought in investments and financing arrangement. Their financing arrangement compared to UEDCL was higher. So the first benefit that we will likely get less cost financing, and that will transit into low tariffs in the long run. But also the issue of employment, as you have seen, we are likely to have more staff Ugandans handling. Of course, they have been handling with UMEME, but this will be a government company with the efficiency that it requires. The other thing is that they will be, when there is funding and government can secure, and which we believe government will secure, a concessional funding, and concessional funding is a low interest funding. All that will be invested in the grid. We know we need money in the grid. When I talk about the grid, the distribution systems, those wires, transformers, and substations, there will be a lot of investment, and the grid will be expanded. So we expect connectivity, improved connectivity, access. We expect reliability to improve as much as and then reduce on losses, because the losses is a big issue to the system.
Okay. How are we going to be addressing the issue of vandalism? It has been here, it has costed us, how are we going to continue addressing this?
First of all, it's a vice that very unfortunate to all of us, the consumers, the Ugandans, and the country. But what has been done, if you realize there's a period when really it was at its peak, people putting down towers around the Kachira, Mabira, and that is because each tower would cost us almost billions of money to put back the network. So how has it been? It has been a concerted effort. First of all, the Electricity Act was amended to include punitive measures for those who are caught with vandalism.
Okay.
And that will send a signal. We then send a signal. If you are caught and you are able to pay billions of money, it will send a signal to the people who are doing it. But that is a post-mortem. Preventively, government working with the UEDCL, Uganda Transmission, and all the players, Ministry of Energy and UPDF, they put a surveillance team on the key installations. For instance, the transmission, because these people have been targeting the aluminium towers, because they believe scrap and all that, they get money at the expense of other, because the multiplier effect of electricity is so high than even the tower they put down. So there's a surveillance team, and of recent past it has really gone down. But also the other thing is sensitization. We need to sensitize the public. First of all, to be their own keepers, to ensure that they're able to watch. If you see anything strange, you need to report immediately. And we have succeeded in some areas where the community themselves have mobilized themselves to arrest some people. I think in Chege were there in some of the installation. The other is to sensitize the public to know the effect of vandalism and what it affects. So we have also to ensure we engage all the stakeholders, ensure that we are working with them, report, working with the police, put channels of communication, improve on the communication channels with toll-free lines, and ensure that we are working towards reducing or minimizing or eliminating completely vandalism into our network, because the impact it creates is really, really, really grave.
Okay. Yeah. And how about electricity theft?
The same way But the challenge with theft is embedded in two things. One is I think they are bad habits. First of all, people should know they are tampering with a very dangerous commodity, electricity. And those who want to use hooking, for instance, you're talking about hooking power, bypassing meters and all that. The issue, there are two things. One is also sensitizing the public, but also to put an enforcement mechanism, because you cannot keep quiet when people are stealing power. So the enforcement mechanism, and you have seen it happen. Remember, moving out areas and ensuring they enforce, they do double check. The other thing is to use our wire persons, technicians who are qualified, because some people have gone into issues of theft, stealing power, but which has turned out to be a healthy issue, a safety matter. Some people die, they're electrocuted, they leave the wires open. So one of the things that we have increased on the number of licensed wire persons to ensure that they are able to connect your house or your installation, to ensure that you are safe and you don't be motivated to steal this power. So for me, the issue of child is sensitized. It's the first easy way for the community and all customers and consumers to be aware that safety is first, but safety of stealing power is the worst thing you are doing. It exposes, because the means and the methods you use to go into stealing power exposes the rest of the people. You've had people where they young children are stepping on the wires which people have dug down and they are dying. So that is also health and the safety which is affecting the lives of the innocent people. So first is when we call upon them to stop it. They don't do it. However, it will reach another level of enforcement. And when you go into enforcement, you are going to ensuring people are complying, you're going to court, and certainly those people will be eliminated, the ones who are stealing power.
Okay. Yeah. Well, very, very important. What is your call to action as the Electricity Regulatory Authority?
The call for action, especially during this time, is that we need to work together, especially the key stakeholders. We call upon, of course, we've seen it. Government has really come out clearly in terms of planning, in terms of ensuring that this is smooth transition. But we also call other players, especially to reach out if you have information that you don't understand. Like today, Luke, you've been asking questions. I hope we've added some light to a few who were able to listen and view us to know what is all about transition. The second thing, as you asked, is that we need to protect this infrastructure. It costs a lot of money. The grid infrastructure costs a lot of money. If you know what government has put in Karuma and Isimba, Ugandans will be able to pay for the next 20 years almost. And this money you will pay it, your child will pay it. So if you vandalize, it means you are increasing on the cost. First of all, putting back the network, but also increasing on the cost of losses. So to me is that be able to understand that this grid is ours. It was not UMEME. It is back to government. It may go, I don't know, but it is important that we know that it's our infrastructure and we don't vandalize. The rest is to cooperate and be able to collaborate with all key stakeholders. If something is not going on well, the systems will be in place to communicate. Call upon us to ensure that we are able to reach out and rectify where there is a problem. Electricity is for all of us, but also we want to move as a country, as a regulator, and also other stakeholders, that everybody has electricity. It is our concern. We are guilty that in some places there is no electricity, but we are working hard with the government. Because people are tired of darkness. People want light.
That's very, it's very true.
Yeah.
And by the way, what is the coverage so far?
The coverage of the coverage of electricity, we have had the figures, two figures. One which has, when you ask me, access of all electricity. When you talk about electricity and power, including solar, we are almost around 58%.
Okay.
But on grid, I think now on grid we should be like 28 or 30. Yeah. So you could see that the rest of the, because the grid will not reach everywhere. There will be off-grid solutions. some off-grid solutions. For instance, of course, Kalangala of recent, it has just been on-grid. It used to be off-grid. They do their own on the islands. We have other islands now who are not accessing through the grid, but they have off-grid solutions. But our objective and aspiration is to ensure every connected government, expectation is 2040. We should be having access, almost everybody having access to power.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow, very interesting. And now, as during this period of transition, what are your expectations from the public, who are the consumers of this electricity?
Really, our expectation is that they should not be worried of anything. Life will continue as usual. Their expectation that for me, I will urge them to pay their bills. I would expect them to continue being safe, to ensure that they use power the way they've been using it. Ensure that they are vigilant. People should not tamper with any installation, strange, because UMEME staff or UEDCL staff are clearly identified. If somebody is not identified and you find him on installation, I will tell you just one example. There is an installation somewhere in the village where I come from.
Yes.
And there is a school, and beside there is a church. So one time my mother was going to church, and he found somebody climbing the pole.
Normal person.
He didn't know.
Yeah.
So she called me.
Wow.
And she called me, said there is a strange person here, but of course with her she doesn't know. She doesn't differentiate between UMEME or ERA. So she said, are you the people who have sent him? Now, at that time. But what happened is that I followed up. And we actually followed up, and we found that person was actually sent by the company, construction company, which was putting up the line, and he was removing the transformer. But they had refused. They took even photos and sent them to me. That's the kind of vigilance we want, because we are in a country where we have some people's behaviors. They have an ethical dilemma. They can steal and vandalize, but also the good ones, we know they are there, and there are many of them. So they should fight this one on behalf of everybody. So when you see an installation, please don't allow strangers, awkward hours, you cannot identify. Because if you're a person of goodwill, if they ask to identify yourself, you should be able to identify yourself, especially. Yeah. So that's what our call: protect and preserve those infrastructure.
Okay.
Yes.
How are you putting out this issue? How are you addressing it? Like people using only people from the regulated people, the qualified people, because I understand there are some places, communities, where you find there is one person. For him, maybe he studied electricity and all those things. He goes, helps in wiring, does all the things. And at a future cost, it could be of risk since they are not certified.
True. And what you're saying is true. What we have done is to extend our outreach. Our outreach as the ERA is that we move first sensitize people. We have a program which we call permit installation and permit program with committee, which moves out in the whole country in different, and even start with the media and radios and TV, explaining ourselves to certify what we call wire persons. Okay. Initially, we would even train a program. We had training them and ensuring partnering with the institutes in Mbale, the Elgon, Kichwamba, and the Bushenyi. We had trained through the World Bank to increase on the number, because the issue that we need to increase the number and ensure you certify them, and when they become certified, it means they are under our supervision and ensuring quality and ensuring technical capabilities, because we interview them, we monitor them, and we ensure that for every connection, any utility company, distribution company, it must be certified by a wire person before a connection is done. Now, yes, you will ask me, there are those areas where people use Kamyufu. We urge them. That's why I think our sensitization has to continue. We urge them to stop using unlicensed wire persons, because it's a danger. They may be maneuvering here and there in the community, but we would like to request and tell them that that's not the right way to do it. You have to use a certified wire person, because that one is monitored, is followed up, and his license can be cancelled, can be reprimanded for if he doesn't do well. Okay. So that is our call, that the wire persons licensed, and we start with utilities. For every utility, for even UEDCL or UMEME, To give a connection, they must have seen a wire person certification.
Okay.
And that, if anything happens, we'll follow them up. Yes.
Well, I find this information very helpful. I believe you also, the viewer out, you are by my side as well. So as we wind up, could you kindly give us your last remarks? Because I understand time has really hit us so bad.
Okay, thank you very much, Luke. And once again, I want to thank Family TV for the opportunity for us to come and share this information, and which we shall continue sharing, because of course it has not been conclusive. We didn't have enough time, but still we thank you. I also want to thank the viewers who were able to listen to us, but also those who asked some questions. I will urge them to follow up with those questions which I try to respond to, but reach out to our offices. My last word is that this is a period which was known by government and all of us, that the the natural end of UMEME will have come to an end. So please, it shouldn't really make people fear. Government has planned with all the stakeholders. We shall have a smooth transition. If there's anything that's not working, there will be numbers. ERA is there. UEDCL will be there. Reach out to us. Ask questions. We have an open door policy. Shall be able to respond, but also to support you. I thank you.
Well, thank you so much. CPA Edward Iruuna, who is the Director of Financial Services at the Electricity Regulatory Authority. We want to appreciate you so much for joining us today here this morning on Issues at Hand. Please, I hope this information has been so much helpful to you, majorly those who have been having questions in this regard about the transition from UMEME to UEDCL. So all that has been answered, but of course we shall continue to provide information in this regard so that you are not misinformed or go off the hook. I want to appreciate you. My name is Luke Majumba. Please stay on for more programs coming up.
Issues at Hand